Hey, what's up, guys? Combat Critique here. Let's take a look at this upcoming fight between Jessica Andrade and Mackenzie Dern. So let's get started. If we look at the records of these two fighters, starting with Jessica, so Jessica has 24 wins and 12 losses. If we talk about her wins, 9 of her 24 wins have been via knockout, 8 via submission, and 7 via decision. Pretty balanced out in terms of the win column. Now let's take a look at her losses. She's lost 5 times via knockout, 4 times via submission, and another 3 times via decision. So again, very balanced in her losses as well. Now let's take a look at Mackenzie Dern's record. So Mackenzie has 13 wins and 3 losses. If we talk about her 13 wins, she has never won a fight via knockout and she has won 7 fights via submission, another 6 fights via decision. So she really has no knockout power. And if we talk about her 3 losses, all 3 of them have been via decision. She has never been finished as a pro. Now let's take a look at the physical and career stats of these two fighters. Starting with the height, it is 5'1" for Andrade and it is 5'4" for Mackenzie Dern. So Mackenzie will have a 3-inch height advantage. If we talk about the weight, it is 115 for both these fighters. Jessica is moving down from 125 and Mackenzie Dern is not small for the weight class either. Reach is 62 inches for Jessica Andrade and it is 63 for Mackenzie Dern. So Mackenzie will have a slight 1-inch reach advantage. However, keep in mind that Jessica has fought and beaten bigger opponents in the past, so Mackenzie is not something special. If we talk about the stance, both these fighters are orthodox stance fighters. And if we talk about the age, Jessica Andrade is the older fighter by about 1.5 years. She is not a lot older than Mackenzie Dern. A lot of people are saying Jessica is washed up, but if you compare the age of these two fighters, you'll see that there's not a huge gap between these two fighters in terms of the age. Now let's take a look at the career statistics of both these fighters, starting with the strikes landed per minute. So this signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average. This is 6.68 for Jessica Andrade and it is almost half of that number, 3.36 for Mackenzie Dern. So a clear advantage here goes to Jessica Andrade. She lands a lot more significant strikes on her opponents per minute on average. Next up, we have the striking accuracy, which is 50% for Andrade and it is 40% for Mackenzie Dern. So again, the advantage goes to Jessica. She is more accurate with her strikes. Next up, we have the strikes absorbed per minute. Now this represents the number of significant strikes that you absorb from your opponents per minute on average. This is 5.34, pretty high for Jessica Andrade, and it is 4.09 for Mackenzie Dern. So in this case, the fighter who gets hit lesser has an advantage. So here the advantage goes to Mackenzie Dern. She gets hit lesser than Jessica Andrade. If we talk about the striking defense, it is 54% for Jessica and 51% for Mackenzie Dern. So a slight advantage here goes to Andrade. Overall, in the striking department, I think Andrade is a better striker. She has 9 knockouts on her record. She has more power than Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern has never won a fight via KO or TKO, and 3 of the 4 striking metrics that we have seen favor Andrade. Now let's talk about the wrestling, grappling, and BJJ statistic. Starting with the takedown average. Takedown average is 2.54 for Jessica, and it is just 0.81 for Mackenzie Dern. So in this case, the advantage goes to Jessica. She has better wrestling when compared to Mackenzie Dern. A lot of these BJJ fighters like Mackenzie Dern don't really work on their wrestling, which is why they have weak wrestling. And if we talk about the takedown accuracy, it is 54% for Jessica and just 15% for Mackenzie. This is what I was saying. These BJJ fighters don't really take the time to develop their wrestling. So again, the advantage here goes to Jessica Andrade. She is the better wrestler in the fight. Takedown defense is 70% for Jessica, and this is good. I think Mackenzie will try to take her down at some point in this fight. Whereas if we talk about the takedown defense of Mackenzie, it is 40%. So again, the advantage here goes to Jessica. Submission average is 0.4 for Jessica Andrade, and it is 1.5, almost more than thrice of that number for Mackenzie Dern. So Mackenzie will have a clear advantage here. She has better BJJ, and I think because of this BJJ, Jessica Andrade will not try to take her down because Mackenzie is really crafty on the ground. Now let's take a look at the significant strikes by position for these two fighters, starting with Jessica. 69% of all her strikes are from the standing position, 19% from the clinch, and 12% on the ground. If we compare this with Mackenzie, 68% of all her strikes are from the standing position, 12% on the clinch, and 19% on the ground. So in the standing, they are pretty even. What differs is Jessica Andrade uses clinch work more often, and Mackenzie Dern likes to ground and pound more often than Jessica Andrade. That's the only difference. Now let's talk about the significant strikes by target. Starting with Jessica, 65% of all her strikes are to the head, 23% to the body, and 13% to the leg. If we compare this with Mackenzie, 75% of all her strikes are to the head, 15% to the body, and 10% to the leg. So Mackenzie is throwing shots to the head more often than Jessica Andrade. And keep in mind that despite this 75% to the head, Mackenzie has never got a KO or TKO win in her career. Whereas if we talk about Jessica, she is more diversified in terms of her shot selection. She is going to the body and to the leg more often than Mackenzie Dern. Now let's talk about some of the previous performances of these two fighters, starting with Jessica Andrade. So Jessica, in her last fight, lost to Tatiana Suarez, and this fight happened in August of this year. She lost via guillotine choke in the second round. And if we talk about the fight, Jessica landed 11 significant strikes and Tatiana landed 23. She also got 3 takedowns and she was able to sub and win the fight. If we talk about the fight before this, Jessica also lost to Yan Jiaonan, and in this fight she lost via KO TKO in the very first round. This fight happened in May of this year. If we talk about the fight statistics, Jessica landed 12 significant strikes, whereas Yan landed 26 and got the KO in the very first round to win this fight. Now let's talk about the fight before that. Jessica lost to Erin Blanchfield. So she is on a 3-fight losing streak. She is not looking good at this point in her career. And this Erin Blanchfield fight, she lost via submission rear naked choke in the second round. This fight happened in February of this year. So she has been really active this year, and I don't know why, but she fought four times in 2023. Now she is fighting once more before the end of this year. In the Erin Blankfield fight, Erin had 51 significant strikes. Jessica was leading at 53, but Erin got the takedown and finally ended up getting the sub. However, keep in mind that the takedown accuracy of Mackenzie Dern is not the same as that of somebody like Tatiana Suarez or Erin Blankfield. These fighters are better wrestlers than Mackenzie Dern. Just because they could do it does not mean Mackenzie will also be able to do it. Her takedown accuracy is just 15%. If we talk about the fight before that, Jessica beat Lauren Murphy via unanimous decision in January of this year itself. So this is the 5th time she is fighting. And before this, she also beat Amanda Lemos via arm triangle in the very first round. So Jessica has submissions of her own. Now let's take a look at Mackenzie's previous few fights. Mackenzie Dern in her last fight beat Angela Hill via unanimous decision. This was a good hard fight and Mackenzie really dominated Angela Hill. She had a huge striking differential. She landed 126 significant strikes against 66 of Angela Hill's, got a knockdown and 3 takedowns. Looked really good in this fight. However, Angela Hill is not a really good fighter. I don't think she is on the level of Jessica Andrade. She does not really have that KO power, and she was, Angela Hill has always been a 50-50 fighter. If she fights 10 fights, she'll win 5 fights, she'll lose 5 fights. If we talk about the fight before this, Mackenzie lost to Yan Jiaonan, and this was a fight which happened in October of last year. She lost via majority decision. It was again a 5-round fight, And if you see the striking differential, now it is heavily in favor of Yan Xiaonan. Yan landed 113 strikes against 61 of Mackenzie Dern, but Mackenzie got 2 takedowns. So she uses takedowns in her game, but her wrestling is not that good. Her takedown accuracy is just 15%. Whereas if we talk about the takedown defense of Jessica Andrade, it is, I think, 70%, which is good enough to stop takedowns of Mackenzie. If we talk about the fight before that, Mackenzie beat Tisha Torres via split decision in April of 2022. And before this, she lost to Marina Rodriguez and a huge striking differential in this fight also. And before this, she beat Nina Nunes in April of 2021 via armbar in the very first round. So Mackenzie has improved a lot in her last fight, and I think after her breakup, she has been more sincere, more hardworking in the gym, and that showed in her last fight. However, I am liking the odds for Jessica Andrade, and for these reasons, I am picking her to win this fight. I think her striking is better than Mackenzie Dern's, and the thing with Mackenzie Dern is she has not gotten any KOs in her UFC career so far. I don't think she'll be able to finish Jessica Andrade on the feet. In the wrestling and grappling, I think Jessica Andrade can stuff takedowns of Mackenzie Dern because Mackenzie is not on the level as Tatiana Suarez or Erin Blankfield. I think Jessica Andrade will stuff her takedowns and outstrike her on her feet to win a decision. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.